kind of is just contradicting what you said about how bad people are going to exist, right? Like you just said that bad people are going to exist. There's nothing that we can do about it. We can contain it a little bit, but they're still going to exist. Ain't that a contradiction of what he just said?
Subscribe to this channel. In case you are watching this channel and have not subscribed.
For our daily cancellation, we turn to American Idol. Most interesting thing about this show is that it is apparently still on the air. I don't know if it's an indication that I'm out of touch or that American Idol is irrelevant. But until this moment, I thought American Idol was canceled years ago. I suppose that's
like
a false
decade
choice.
ago.
I mean, the answer could be and probably is both. I'm out of touch and the show is irrelevant. Be that as it may, it was back in the cultural conversation ever so briefly this week, but not for anything related to music or singing. Instead, it was the story of one contestant, and more specifically, a judge's reaction to that story that had people talking. Watch.
In May 2018, a gunman walked into my school. I was in art room 1, and he shot up art room 2. Before he made his way to art room 1. Lost a lot of friends. 8 students were killed. 2 teachers were killed. And
that's crazy, man.
It's just really been negative, man. Santa Fe's had a bad rap here since 2018. What you doing,
It is
Katy?
fucking really sad, man.
Our country has failed us.
Facts.
This is not okay. You should be singing here because you love music,
It's true.
not because you had to go through that.
I agree.
You didn't have to lose 8 friends. I hope that you remind people that we have to change. Because you know what? I'm scared too.
It's terrible, Katy. It's horrible.
Now, before we deal with the substance of Katy Perry's response, to the extent that it had any substance, we cannot ignore the incredible narcissism on display here by her.
That's what I was about to say, but I didn't know how to articulate it without being a dick.
Perry has apparently attended the same training seminars alongside Giselle Fetterman to learn how to make other people's traumas about yourself. He is calmly recounting his own horrific experience, and Perry uses it as a platform to put on this over-the-top emotional performance. She even relates it back to herself somehow. I'm scared too, she says. As her fellow judges comfort her, they start patting her on the back and comforting her while the kid who was actually in the shooting stands there and watches.
I want to play a little bit of devil's advocate here. I'm not saying that she definitely took it over the top, like 100% took it over the top, made it seem like really, really dramatic. She could have handled it differently, but I feel like women typically are more empathetic, as in they can put themselves in someone else's shoes and feel the emotions that they're feeling. But what she did, she took it to like a whole nother level. I just feel like most women would react the same way that she did, just not as extreme.
Here's a hint. If someone is telling you about something awful that happened to them, your response should not contain the words I or me, unless you're saying something like, I'm so sorry, or I'm here for you. But if you're attempting to put yourself at the center of this person's
like
suffering,
she goes to
or
school,
deflect from it so that the focus is on you and your own emotions, then you are a classic narcissist. And maybe worst of all, you're creating an incredibly awkward situation for everyone else who has to be in the room with your lack of self-awareness.
Right.
I can only imagine how uncomfortable it must have been for that young man to be standing there, not sure what to say or how to respond as Katy Perry launches into her camera-ready monologue like she's auditioning for a soap opera. A monologue that was planned, by the way, considering that the judges would have known ahead of time that a contestant was coming up who'd been in a mass shooting.
Would it though?
That fact was certainly conveyed to Katy Perry and her cohorts by the producers before the kid got up on the stage. She didn't burst into tears spontaneously. She had all this planned in her head ahead of time. And I understand that this is a very cynical interpretation of events, But I've been around long enough, and I've been in media long enough, and I've met enough of these sorts of people to justify my cynicism. But what about the actual point she was making in her scripted diatribe? She says that the country has failed the victims and survivors of this school shooting. And of course, she means specifically that it failed by not passing enough gun control laws to prevent the shooting from happening. Never mind that the shooter already broke a dozen different laws in carrying out his crime. It's unclear how exactly it would have helped to add one or two more laws onto the pile that the killer was already determined to disregard. You can only make an act illegal so many times before the laws start to become redundant and therefore useless. Yet this is what we so often do in our culture. When a bad thing happens, we declare that the bad thing is the result of some sort of failure. It's always a systemic failure of government, of policy. People like Katy Perry take solace in the idea that all tragedies are policy failures because, and really all bad things, they say poverty is a policy failure too. Because for one thing, it gives them an excuse to push their political agenda, obviously, but for another, it comforts them to think that the right policies, if we could finally land on them, would banish all the bad things from our midst.
Right.
When Perry says that the country failed because there was a school shooting, what she means is that we ought to have a country where there are no shootings at all. And she's right, in the sense that every mass shooting and every bad thing shouldn't happen. That's why it's a very bad thing. If there's something that's evil, like any evil shouldn't happen. But Perry, like any other leftist, believes that a country without any murder, without any bad people doing bad things, is actually practically achievable, and that it can be achieved through policy.
I know I'm gonna piss some pro-gun. I don't know. I don't care about guns at all. But I know I'm gonna piss some of y'all off for just saying this, and I'm sorry. Hope you don't unsub. But I mean, she's not technically wrong. If there wasn't guns in the country, I mean, there might have been a possibility that he could have got his hands on one illegally. But that would have been, well, I don't know the situation, but I would assume that would have been way harder for him to obtain a gun to the black market than it would have been however he obtained it. But there wouldn't have been that 8 casualties over a knife. Maybe, I'd probably not though. With that being said, I don't think you should take your guns away. I just don't think she's far off from feeling the way that she feels, because technically, I mean, it would fix the issue a little bit, but it wouldn't solve the problem. I do feel like we need guns in our country. The assault rifles, I feel different on. I don't really see a point in having them other than just like you want it because you feel like someone's trying to take it away from you. I don't know. Like I said, I hope I don't piss any of y'all off. I don't really have a strong opinions on guns. I don't really care, but I just don't know who else is going to fix these school shootings other than the government. I mean, they're in charge of the education system. They're in charge of the legal system. They're in charge of all this stuff. So, I mean, who the fuck else is going to fix it other than the government? Because it is something that needs to be fixed. I don't know whether we need to stop talking about it, which doesn't seem like the solution. But then again, I feel like a lot of people are shooting up schools because of the attention now. Or if we need to restrict the laws on guns, or if we need to add security to schools, or I don't know the solution, man. I just know that these school shootings are getting crazy.
The irony, of course, is that the utopianists who imagine that a world of perfect peace and harmony can really be achieved tend, through their policies, to create a world that is ever farther away from peace and harmony. Worlds like the world of Chicago, for example. People with Katy Perry's worldview run most of our major American cities, and most of our major American cities are violent, crime, and disease-ridden hellholes, which actually isn't all that ironic when you realize that effective governance means understanding human nature. And understanding human nature means acknowledging that bad people will always exist and they will always do bad things. You can do a lot. You can do a much better job of containing and mitigating the damage, but you can only do that once you've acknowledged the fallen state of man, and that although you can mitigate the damage and try to contain it, there will always be damage to mitigate and contain. With all that said, it's still true that a school shooting represents a failure. In fact, it's a whole series of failures. But they're mostly the kinds of failures that Katy Perry and her ilk never want to talk about. First of all, it's a moral failure of the person who carries out the deed. People have agency, they have free will, they choose to do things. They should be the first people we blame for the things that they choose to do, rather than pinning it on the country.
I mean, yeah, but that kind of is just contradicting what you said about how bad people are going to exist, right? Like, you just said that bad people are going to exist. There's nothing that we can do about it. We can contain it a little bit, but they're still going to exist. Ain't that a contradiction to what he just said?
And also, very often, there have been parenting failures that help to produce the sorts of people who would do something like that. And failures in a culture which breeds people who have no meaning, no purpose in their lives, seemingly no capacity for empathy or love. These are all failures. And they're the kinds of failures we skip over, focusing instead on debates over gun control. And that itself is also a failure. One which only ensures that this kind of thing will keep happening with the same or greater frequency.
I'm sorry, I just feel like that's a whole contradiction of what he just said. He just said that bad people are going to exist. There's nothing we can do about it. We can implement some stuff to contain it a little bit. And then he said that we got to stop focusing on gun control, which would focus on containing the issue. Tell me if I'm wrong on that, but I feel like that was a whole contradiction.
And that is why Katy Perry is today finally canceled.
I don't usually do this, but I want to start. I just always forget. I want to read the comments. Yeah, on God, I was thinking that too. The guy who went through the actual trauma is more composed than her. How much do you want to bet that there are guns that protect Katy, whether it's her own guns or security guard guns? She wouldn't want to live in a world with no way to protect her home or family. I mean, that's true, which is why I said that there should be guns allowed, but assault rifles are just different. I'm not sure if that's what he shot the school up with, but I would assume that's usually the weapon of choice. You can tell she was not comfortable letting someone else have a sad story. Oh, God. She almost as good as an actor as yeah, she's almost as good as an actor as Amber Heard. The crying without tears, the yelling. She had tears, didn't she? I swear she had tears. Yeah, there's a tear right there. Just one. She squeezed one out. But yeah, that's gonna be the end of that video. Please like the video. If you got anything to say about the video, let me know down below. I never talked about gun control. Like I said, don't hate me. I really don't have a belief on it. I just said what I thought. I don't really have any backing behind it. I'm not trying to fight no one or argue on it. I would love to see your guys' feedback on what I said, but that's just the first thing that came to my mind. But please like the video. If you got anything to say about the video, let me know down below. And if you can, and if you will you please give me a subscription? With that being said, deuces.
I almost think about it, but that's just how it's supposed to be. She thinks she leeching probably, but she won't get nothing from me. Say you let me, I doubt it. I'll fuck around and pay the fee. It's a whole lot of hate up in your eyes, and I can see it.
Hate all in your eyes, and you've been praying on my downfall.